Okay, so this video is going to be about mental holography and how you can choose your thoughts. Okay, I'm making it sound very, very simple. The first thing that I want to share with you is a dream that I had a few years ago. I'm going to show you an image. It's the best image that I could find to represent the image that I saw in my dream, which was way prettier than this, but it's actually perfect because this is the visitor side of a jail, which is really a perfect symbol for what we're talking about here because our minds are either our prisons or they are freedom. So what I was shown in my dream was this infinite row of windows, very similar to this, but infinite. And in between each window, there were partitions. The partitions went back from each window maybe 3 or 4 feet. Okay, so it was deeper partitions than this. Um, and there were chairs just like this that were set before each window and pushed in against the small shelves that came out. Okay. And I was shown in this dream people sitting down in different chairs. And each window was an eye of sorts in terms of what this person perceived moving forward through their timeline reality. Okay. So each window represented a thought or interpretations or an interpretation of the emotional data that preceded the thought. So basically, you have an emotion that's data, right? It's telling you something. Your mind makes all these interpretations about that emotion. Let's say the emotion is anger. Okay. So you have the feeling, your mind immediately gets to work trying to interpret that feeling. As you choose your thought that aligns with that data, you are also choosing a window to look through, which is like your eye in terms of what you see about yourself, about this realm, about the other that you're interacting with. And now you are walking through that window, in a sense, down the path of your timeline reality. So that's just what you're going to see moving forward, whatever that thought is. Okay. And it's going to keep bringing you down the road that aligns with that thought. So let's say, again, we'll just use anger. Um, let's say you have the feeling, um, you start making all of these interpretations and you choose a window, right, that validates, that aligns with those interpretations. You're going to be now moving forward through life, continuing to see yourself, the other experiences, situations, other relationships, even as more evidence of that thought, supporting evidence of that thought. It's sort of like your mind goes out on a scavenger hunt to support that thought. And so now you're going to see that. So let's say something happens inside of a relationship. Um, there's some feeling of betrayal, even. Okay. Feel betrayed in some way, anger, betrayal, right? And you now have the thought that, other people are not trustworthy, untrustworthy. Um, you are at any moment going to be victimized. Um, this just proves previous evidence to be true, other times that you've experienced this feeling in the past. And so now you're going to sit down at this window. This is going to be the thought supporting other beliefs that are probably already in your mental holography. And as you move forward, this is what you're going to keep seeing as you go inside of this current relationship and others as well. Okay. Now, I want you to note that there are many, many windows that you can sit down at. Okay. Many other windows that perhaps are more empowering, have more positive conceptualizations of self attached to the thought. Okay. That are less going to sink you in the swirling cesspool of victim consciousness. Okay. So let's say instead you choose a thought that says, wow, this situation is showing me a lot about trauma relating in this world. I see what is going on with this person. I'm seeing this other person from a bird's eye view perspective in terms of what, this person's mental holography, what this person may have experienced to create this type of behavior. I see how it is affecting me. I see how I might allow it to take me down. But instead, I am going to choose to not dance in that particular shitstorm. And I am going to choose to rise above. I am going to choose to be what I would prefer to see and experience because I know that it has to start with me. So I'm going to sit down at this window. I'm going to have thoughts like that. Wow, I really see myself right now. I see that I would not behave in this way. I see that I choose to be loving, to be compassionate, to not betray, to not blah, 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 right? Whatever it may be. We're super general here, right? And I'm going to be that. That is what I'm going to embody, and I am going to be that. So now you're choosing how to see yourself. You're choosing how to walk through your realm. So that window that you sit down at is going to be much more empowering than, for example, the other window that we already discussed. Your timeline reality is going to roll out from there. It's going to be much more empowered. It's going to be walked through your heart space, your heart center. Okay. I actually, as I say this, I have an image in my mind right now of you walking through the portal of your heart center, right? What I also want to emphasize, however, is that when the feeling comes up, we don't want to bypass the feeling or shame the feeling or demonize the feeling. Okay. We want to observe the feeling and be with the feeling for however long we need to before we're ready to choose the interpretation, to choose the thought, to choose the window, to choose the eye. Okay. So by that, I mean, you observe the feeling and you employ active imagination, which is a technique coined by Carl Jung. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. I will give a little bit of information about it now. Active imagination is exactly what it sounds like. You are actively imagining. So instead of letting your mind take you off on a wild goose chase, right? Where you are not leading your mind, it's leading you, it's running away with you. This is going to be lower mind stuff. This is going to be mental holography stuff. Excuse me. This is going to be stuff that is based in core beliefs that are non-beneficial, that were created by past experiences, likely in childhood, but also as you grew, even far into adulthood. Okay. So that's going to be your mind taking you away. Active imagination is where you're bringing in your observer mind, your higher mind. We could also think of this as air energy. Okay. Balanced air energy, swords. And you're actively choosing where to take your mind. So you're going to immediately identify, boy, this feeling is telling me that a psyche part is online. A psyche part is activated. A psyche part is with me. A part meaning an energy in your psyche. It is likely an inner child energy. And you begin to ask it questions. So let's stick with anger. So here's anger. So we might ask, why are you so afraid, my love? And yes, you want to speak to yourself like this, my love. You want to call yourself my love because you are parenting yourself. You're bringing in your higher source stream consciousness to work with your mental holography, your human mental holography. So ask yourself questions and listen for answers. Okay. Close your eyes, breathe, perhaps put your hands over your heart center. Really be with yourself, be present. We're not bypassing, we are not pathologizing, you're not demonizing. It's the very opposite. We want to validate the bejesus out of the feeling. Okay. And then when you do that for yourself, you will be able to choose an interpretation that is more beneficial to you and to the collective. Okay. So do that for as long as you need to, as much as you need to, right? Be with yourself, be present with yourself. Then choose the window you want to sit at. And I hope that you choose a window that feels empowering to you, that feels like who you really be. All right. So let me stop sharing this. All right. So I'm also going to share this document. This is something that I send out to clients to neutralize an overactive energy emotion, which manifests like obsession or rumination. So in addition to active imagination, and then choosing a thought so that you are quite literally choosing your future experience, okay? You can also consider some of these techniques. So humor is one. Now, sometimes this might be really, really difficult. You need to know for you if this would be beneficial. It depends on the situation, okay? So accessing your inner child is embracing experience as something silly or funny, inconsequential or significant, all right? Because sometimes you really, really get real with yourself. Stuff is funny as shit or just really insignificant. Okay, it's just you're having a response based on your own wounds. Okay, so humor is a way that you can shift that in some circumstances, not always. You need to know what's right for you. Okay, number two, passivity to discharge the active force. So I give the example here of the song A Sky Full of Stars by Coldplay, where he sings, I don't care, go on and tear me apart. I don't care if you do, because in a sky full of stars, I think I saw you. And I also recommend the movie Sing 2. It's actually like a really, really good movie with a lot of codes and clues in terms of mental holography and in terms of activating the heart center. Okay. So to be able to hook into the higher perspective that everyone is playing a role here. We are all acting from our individual mental holography, and we get to choose how we use it, right? Are we going to use it to fall down on our knees and be a victim to it, or are we going to use it to empower ourselves, right? Which, ironically, paradoxically, is passive. Okay. So this discharges the active force because now we're saying, ah, I see what this is. Everybody's activating everybody else. Everybody's a mirror for everybody else. Everybody's a reflection for everybody else. So, you know, I don't care. Go on and tear me apart. I don't care if you do, because in a sky full of stars, I think I saw you. We're all doing this work for each other here together. Okay. So now instead of feeling like a victim, feeling really wronged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we're remembering from a higher bird's eye perspective that this entire realm is a stage. Okay. And we're all playing our roles here. And then you get to decide from there what you want to do with your role. What role do you want to play? Who are you? Who are you going to be? And what are you going to do? All right. Okay. Number 3, time. Think about time. Do you want to waste your time obsessing over something? It blocks creativity and movement forward. So does it really benefit you to obsess? Does it really? Also, you can hand the reins to your highest self and trust you will have clarity in time. So commit to setting down the problem. So trusting that you will have clarity. I'm going to set this down now. I will know at the perfect time. The answers will come to me. So I sort of chuckle at this phrase, do you want to waste your time? Look, anything you do with your time is bringing you forward in some way. So no time is ever really wasted, but the question is, what window are you sitting down in front of? Okay. All right. Number 4, the universal release method is another option where you can actually, this is sort of similar to active imagination, but you can actually validate on a spectrum of energy polarized thoughts. So like, for example, let's say you're having all of these really non-beneficial thoughts. Okay, great. Bring it home. Let's hear all the supporting evidence. Do that in your mind or write a list. This is true because take yourself straight to hell. Okay. And then on the other end of the spectrum, look at it from a perspective of this is not true because, and take yourself to heaven. Okay. And you're going to keep going back and forth, volleying these thoughts back and forth until you start to feel like the energy is deactivating a bit. So you're not feeling so completely downtrodden or despairing or whatever the energy is. So it's sort of like you could think of it as a whole spectrum of energy. On one end, you got hell thoughts. On the other end, you got heaven thoughts. You're going to keep bouncing, volleying off each other until maybe you get somewhere more in the middle, somewhere a little more neutral. Okay. So it's you having a conversation with yourself and allowing you to play out the entirety of the energy in your mind. And as I write here, you are also partially acting as an observer now, which means you will access more neutrality. So you're getting out of that mental holography again. You're getting above it. Okay. You're steering it. You're driving it. Okay. Number 5, alchemize it. Use it all to benefit yourself in this world. Make a list of what the thoughts are showing you about what you can heal within and focus on receiving that information. Okay. So from there, you can do some grounding practices, some grounding techniques, or maybe some inner child work. You can intentionally release non-beneficial energies or thoughts by actually declaring that I release all non-beneficial energies and thoughts. Call your power back. Replace anything that feels non-beneficial to you with what feels beneficial to you. And now, and this is where the alchemy comes in, you're going to create from it. So when I say create from it, I mean, perhaps you'll make art, perhaps you will sing, perhaps you will teach others what you've learned, okay? Whatever is meaningful to you in terms of how you love to create in this world. Okay, number 6. The energy of righteous protection and boundaries are to be discerned from healthy, loving boundaries. I have a whole video about this. So The former, righteous protection and boundaries, is a nemesis, and it will cycle you in predator-prey energy dynamics with yourself, others, and this realm. The latter honors individuation, free will, or spiritual sovereignty of self and others. Okay, so you want to discern between the two. All right, so this is some work that you can do with yourself, with your balanced air energy, discern between the two. When obsessive thoughts become paranoia or defensive protection energetics, ungrounded, fearful, and unstable, you want to have awareness for that. Okay, let me stop sharing for a minute here. You want to have awareness for that. You want to notice if you're ruminating over some situation that just happened, some something in your relationships, like whatever it is. Notice if it's really taking you down a path to hell in your own mind. If you're stuck in it, you're having a really hard time getting out of it. Okay. You need to ask yourself those questions now, because typically there's going to be some inner child fragment, some fragmentation in your psyche that's been activated, that is resulting in you feeling really, really self-protective and defensive. Okay. And it's putting you in a fear space. So I'm going to give an example for myself. Okay. This is something, this is an example that I always think about, because it was like one of those situations where it was like my response and my obsession and my somatic experience was, it was so obvious to me at the time that it was like way over the top compared to what I was actually experiencing. Okay. And it wasn't a judgment. Don't do that to yourself. I mean, I was loving it. I knew that it was an inner child psyche part that was activated. Okay. So I was loving it, but I was aware with my mind, my adult mind, that things were over the top. Okay. That it just didn't add up. So this particular situation, I was in the river that I guardian, and I was drumming and I was singing, as I do often. And a neighbor who is awesome, okay, but you know, doesn't have a lot of awareness for some of the activities that I partake in. He came down, and I could see him standing on my back deck up on the hill looking down at me. And I could feel the energy of confusion probably, and judgment, and just coming from his own perceptual reality, his own mental holography. Okay. However, my mental holography that had a fear of being judged and being misunderstood, and also was righteously protective of my boundaries and feeling like, how dare you come to my house and stare at me like that and look at me like that? Like, who do you think you are? Okay. It was all my inner child, feeling like, I wanted to protect myself, feeling angry, that someone would come into my realm, my world, my home, and impart this sort of like suppression energy my way. And that's, again, my mental holography. Okay, that's how I was perceiving it. Whether that was his intention or what was even going on with him, who knows? And it doesn't matter. But that was my mental holography, and that was my perception. Okay, now first I felt the feeling. I saw him there. I saw him staring at me. He kept staring at me. He didn't stop staring at me. His jaw was kind of hanging open. And the feeling that came up was actually fear. And, after I was able to sit with this later, I could look back and I could see that it was fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of all this stuff. Um, and it was an opportunity for me to work through any masks, any ways that I was not being completely my authentic self, with this person who I knew came from a certain level of awareness, who we had been friendly in the past, but now he was seeing a truer version of me, a more cohesive version of me. And so what was our relationship going to be like now? So of course, all spiraling back to uh perceived rejections in the past or actual rejections in the past, based on the mental holography of another, the level of awareness of another, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so um, that is a perfect example. I remember afterwards, I was sort of walking the trails um, behind my house, and I was just like obsessing, not so much over the situation, but obsessing over my major reaction. And I was angry. I felt violated, and it was really, really over the top. Okay. Um, Again, not said with judgment, but I was able to discern that this reaction was something that I could use to do some active imagination work with, to work with my inner child. It was funny because, later I found out he said to my partner, "What does she do and call in the fishes?" Right. So that's a great place now to bring in some humor because, like, it's kind of funny that he said that. Right. But at the time, I didn't think anything was funny. I felt violated. Okay. So anytime that we are having a major response to something and we are able to discern, okay, perhaps I am a little bit activated here, out of proportion, like to the situation, right? Um, that is a really, really great time to start to utilize some of these methods. And that took me a while. Like the whole process, it was like hours. It was like all day. This was in my mind and I was working on it. And by the time I went to bed that night, I was able to choose my window. And it was a way more beneficial window than it would have been if I didn't have the awareness and the discernment to do that work. Okay. Um, okay, what else did I want to say about that? There was something else. Um, Once you get to a certain level of awareness, you're going to be able to have that discernment come in very, very quickly. Okay. The more that you practice self-compassion, self-validation, self-understanding, and be that beautiful reflection of love for yourself, the more easily that discernment is going to be able to come in as well. Because until you access those energies, you're going to be looking outside of yourself for that validation, that compassion, that understanding. And it's not going to come. It's not supposed to come because you're meant to find it for yourself. Okay. You're meant to find it for yourself. So as long as you're looking outside yourself for it and it doesn't come, you're always going to end up the victim. You're always going to end up feeling boundary violated. All these people are out to get you. What's wrong with all these people? Now, for example, now, excuse me, same situation. If he were to come and stand on my deck, all this time later, and that were to happen, I would navigate it completely differently. Okay. Because of the work that I have done. But if I had sat down at that window that said all of these non-beneficial things, okay, and put me on that timeline reality, and he came back to my deck tomorrow and stood there, I'd just be cycling. I'd be cycling in the same momentum, which we can also think of as karma. Okay, because karma is unconscious momentum, keeps propelling you down the same non-beneficial timeline over and over and over, pulling in, magnetizing in the same experiences because it's your holography that is creating the interpretation of the experiences. So it's not to say that the experiences themselves will stop. Like I said, he could come to my deck tomorrow and stand there in exactly the same way. Okay. This isn't a solipsistic perspective here. Um, it's not that the experiences themselves will stop, but the experiences themselves will stop based on how you perceive them, your interpretation and the timeline reality that rolls out from that window. So like now, for example, if you were to come and that were to happen, I would not only navigate it differently, but I know immediately my mind would actually hook into humor when I saw him standing there with his jaw, like, what is she doing, you know? Um, and also compassion and love and care for him because my inner child isn't activated anymore, you know, so I can stand in my balanced inner alchemical energies. Um, so I hope that that example is useful. I could give 50 billion more. If anyone has any questions or comments or even personal examples, and you would like to place them in the comments below, I will do my best to share some perspectives to help you access an interpretation that places you in front of a window that aligns you with a beneficial timeline reality. We do this work first and foremost for ourselves, and then it affects everyone around us. And if enough of us are sitting in front of heart-centered windows, in windows that know our power and our spiritual sovereignty, then every single thing that we touch, everything that we interact with, that is the energy that we're going to be bringing. Okay. All right. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Please like, please subscribe if you haven't already. And I am sending you so much love tonight.